and who want to attend. So thank you for coming. I appreciate it. Will you please join us in our Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible,
Liberty.
with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. Town Clerk Busey, will you please call the roll?
Yes, Councilman Williver,
Here.
Councilwoman Corbin,
Here.
Supervisor Cusey,
Here.
and also present Deputy Town Supervisor Victoria Mazzetti.
Here.
All right, we'll go through a couple of announcements that should be of interest to many in the community. The fire department is hosting a Red Cross blood drive on November 11th from 2 p.m. till 6:30 p.m. at the fire department. Somebody want to say something? Okay, that sounded like Pam, but I didn't see her mouth moving, so I should have assumed it wasn't her. You all know about the library roof. Oh my gosh, it's been at the top of our agenda for I can't remember how long, but I want everyone to know that we did prepare the RFP package, and we did send out RFPs to the community with the help of Catherine Hankins and Pamela Bucci and Todd Ewell and John Mancuso. I was able to get that done, thank goodness. There has been interest shown in the RFP. We released it to the Builders Exchange. And this Friday, we are having a walkthrough for the proposed bidders to come and look at the project before they affix their signature to the proposals. Also want to announce, I think it was our last meeting, we authorized a $1,400 expenditure and some overdue generator maintenance at the town hall. That was completed on Monday, and I personally spoke with the technician who worked on it. He said that that generator should be good for 25 more years if we continue to maintain it on a schedule. Now, of course, he's hyping for his company, but I believe that to be true. We did have a ethics conflict of interest and indemnification for the boards that was presented by John Mancuso, our attorney. I thought it was extremely good. I learned a couple of things that I didn't formally know. And we're going to have 1 hour of training for members of the planning and zoning boards, which will be upcoming. I would suggest they take it because I think we're in a period of change for our society, our governments, our country, and what was overlooked just 10, 15 years ago could be made into a big issue today. So I suggest that everyone listen to John and take his words to heart. The last announcement I have is that the police training rifle range on Stony Brook Road, they've posted their new November rifle range schedule. It is posted on the website under news. If you are interested in their schedule over there, you can look that up and see what it's all about. Next on the agenda is the public comment period. And I hope someone has something to say. Just remember, we've got to be professional and we've got to be considerate of those who are on this call with us. So please, I welcome your comments. Remember, this is not where you have two-way dialogue. This is where you express yourself and let it go at that. So please have at it.
Jerry, I'd like to speak.
That looks like Carol Barnett with her beautiful little kitty. So
Yeah, I
Carol,
don't,
could you just say your name and address for the record, please?
yeah, Carol Barnett, 117 Lions Road. I just wanted to share that today I attended a DEC, Department of Environmental Conservation webinar on urban and community forestry grants and tree cities. And I learned, I guess I sort of knew this, but I learned a lot more about the requirements for being a tree city, which is that you have a tree board or a committee, that you have a tree ordinance, which there's plenty of guidance for that and templates to follow, that you have an Arbor Day observance, and that you fund a, that you have $2 per capita that's devoted to the fostering of trees, which is actually not as burdensome as it sounds, because there's ways to repurpose spending that you're already doing on equipment and personnel. There's plenty of guidance and tools to use to satisfy the formula for that. And so I left it feeling like our group, the Rush Recreation and Park Association, and other interested parties would love to work with the town board to get Rush to be a tree city. For one thing, it really gives you an advantage when you're applying for grants such as the urban and community forestry grants that the DEC gives out. So I think this is, it would be a wonderful thing for us to do in the near future. Oh, and I wanted to say that Supervisor Kusi is the one who sent out to me and other people the notice about this DEC webinar. So thanks for that.
thank you, Carol.
There's no one in the chat, Jerry.
No one in the chat. Well, it looks like we're going to have to move on with our meeting then. Can I have approval of the October 14th minutes?
I'll make a motion to approve the October 14th minutes as written.
I'll second it.
Councilman Wilver,
Aye.
Councilwoman Corbin,
Aye.
Supervisor Kusi,
Aye. And we can move on to the transfer of funds by Councilwoman Corbin.
There are two transfer of funds tonight. The first one is number 10 is to reclassify for the highway personnel budget from maintenance and repair personnel to miscellaneous personnel budget. And transfer number 11 for 2020 is to reclassify the QPK roof vouchers from building capital outlay to engineering contractual costs. So be it resolved that having audited all the unexpended balance of existing appropriations, I so move that transfer for 2020 number 10 for $12,000 for reclassification of highway maintenance and repair personnel to miscellaneous personnel budget. And number 11 for $18,500 for building capital outlay to engineering contractual costs and reclassifying QPK roof vouchers be approved. May I have a second, please?
Well, I'll second that.
Councilman Wilver,
Aye.
Councilwoman Corbin,
Aye.
Supervisor Kusi,
Aye. And Councilwoman Corbin, how about the abstract?
I happen to have it right here. I move to approve claims listed on abstract number 10-2 dated October 23rd, 2020 for vouchers 2020 number 958 through 2020 1006 be approved for payment in the amount of $21,565.82. And may I have a second?
I'll second it.
Councilman Wilver,
Aye.
Councilwoman Corbin,
Aye.
Supervisor Kusi,
Aye. I've already shared the correspondence with you. And we'll go now to reports from members of the board and departments. And we can start off with Councilwoman Corbin for her report.
Must be alphabetical. All right. I attended the planning board meeting on October 20th as the town board liaison. There were 3 things on the agenda. First was a public hearing by the Sri Temple at 6980 East River Road, requesting a site plan review for the construction of a new 28,000, oh, a doggy, 986 square foot temple. The public hearing was closed and the application was tabled pending additional information. There was a tabled application that was discussed by Forefront Power LLC requesting a special permit and site plan for the development of the Tier 3 Werner Solar 5 megawatt facility at 8427 West Henrietta Road. The planning board approved both the special permit and site plan for the Werner Tier 3 solar installation. And later tonight, the town board will be scheduling the public hearing on the matter of amending the town zoning map. Finally, I apologize. Third, there was an informal discussion by Rush Solar Farm 1 LLC and Rush Solar Farm 2 LLC, Helios, for property in Rush at 540 Honey Falls number 6 Road. They're proposing an installation of a Tier 3 solar installation of an 8 megawatt facility on the property. I also attended via Zoom the training workshop that Attorney Mancuso gave on ethics, conflict of interest, and indemnification. And that is my report.
Thank you very much. Following the alphabetical order, I think next on is Dan for his report.
I attended the fire commissioners meeting. I attended the planning board meeting. And I also attended the ethics training.
Do you by chance have any report on Commissioner Faw, who I understand is quite ill or was quite ill?
No, I didn't get an update.
Okay,
He did not attend.
pardon me?
He did not attend the meeting.
Well, he's in the hospital. I don't think he would. How about Deputy Supervisor Mazzetti? Do you have an update?
I do not have an update for now. I will be sharing later on.
Yes, you will be, and thank you very much. I appreciate it. It is my pleasure to give the report for the highway superintendent. He must trust me to give his report, so I will enthusiastically give it. He says that they are readying the town trucks for snow and ice removal. And he's saying that the snow may come before this weekend. I didn't want to say that but it's his report, so I've got to say it. He said that they are doing a full service on engines, transmissions, and hydraulic components, and that has by now been completed. Salt spreaders are going through the coupling process and are all calibrated by the pound for road salt applications, which is more science than I thought it was. Front and side wing plow frames are also being mounted in anticipation of a heavier event. Oh, I wish you wouldn't say stuff like that. Both the townwide drainage projects agreed upon have been completed. There could be some topsoil restoration required in the spring of next year. And finally, he reports that snow fence and delineator markers will be going up very soon. You'll see the crews around town putting all of that safety additions in fields adjacent to roads. So we can move on. I don't think our assessor, Augie is with us. But I know Pat Stevens likes to report early. So Pat, would you like to give a report?
She needs to get on.
I'm here. Sorry. Yeah, I sent everyone an email related to the insurance company, requesting and jury requesting that I meet with Selective Insurance Company, which is a rider for Gary Wilkins Insurance Company on child molestation coverage for employees. I met with the lady who works for Selective on the phone for a couple of hours, and she explained the whole process to me and talked about the cost, which I forwarded on to you, and what would be required for every employee for the town of Rush. I'm just wondering if anybody has any questions for me related to the information I sent you. And I'm not an HR person per se, so I kind of I learned a lot from this whole process that I shared with this woman on the phone. But I'm not sure. I have gathered the information, so I'm not sure what the town board would like to do with this particular policy.
Pat, may I make a comment?
Sure.
On behalf of our listeners, I want everyone to know that it's not because of any experience that we've had that you're talking about this. It's because of the litigious society that we happen to live in, which has changed significantly from just 10 years ago. And given that you have programs that deal with small children, that's one of the major reasons for looking into this. Obviously, our insurance carriers strongly suggest that we avoid any risk and have coverage that will protect us. And that's what this is all about. It's not because we've got a problem.
I will share with everyone that in my programs, I always make sure that there's sufficient staff, meaning always 2 present at all my programs, in case there's a problem or whatever. So I'm well staffed in all the stuff, all the programs that we do. It was a suggestion from Gary Wilkins. John, is it a law that it's required for the towns to have the coverage? I don't know the legal part.
No, it's optional to carry that type of insurance coverage. My recollection is that this briefly was raised as a consideration once before. Might have been last year when Kathy Frank was a supervisor, and my recollection was that there were discussions about the parameters to qualify for the coverage and what the cost might be. And it was, I don't believe it was ever acted upon, obviously. And so it's now being revisited at this point, but no, optional coverage at the town's discretion.
Was there a legal reason why we didn't pursue it? Do you know, John?
I believe one of the considerations that was discussed during one of the meetings was an issue of background checking that needed to be implemented in order to gain the coverage, and the cost that might have been associated with doing those background checks as compared to the potential risk that may arise in terms of what the molestation coverage may afford protection for the town. And so I don't think it ever went any further beyond a meeting. One meeting where it was discussed is my recollection, but certainly if anyone has a different recollection that was part of those discussions, feel free to interrupt and disagree.
So the cost is $16 per person. Jerry, what did we say, how many employees there were today?
If we did the entire workforce at that $16 rate, it would be about just under 1,500. But of course, you could go to a lower number, if the board decided that a lower number of certain employees was more appropriate, you could go for the higher feedback fee. In other words, let's say the $20 package or the $25 package per employee. But that would be up to the board to decide.
Right, and the $16 is a base price. And she explained to me, they go back 18 years of residence. They go back 18 years wherever people lived. So I'll just leave it at that. Okay.
Okay, Pat.
Otherwise, everything's going wonderful. The pavilion is great. The programs are great. Everything's going terrific. We'll have to see where COVID takes us, I guess. And that's it. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Pat, very much. Can we go to our finance expert, Dan Klimek? Do you have an update?
Hi, good evening, everyone. Just real brief, the budget process is continuing on. We have provided to the comptroller's office the tax cap submission, which certifies that, of course, we are not exceeding the tax cap. Obviously, we haven't raised tax, so that step is done. Remaining steps that we have for the budget at this point in time is the adoption of the budget by the board, which is scheduled for the next board meeting, I believe on November 11. And then it's a matter of providing the information to Monroe County so they can create the property tax bills that will be sent out in January. And I just received the email from them today. And we'll give them the amounts that they will need so they can do their job. That's it.
Thank you very much. Town Clerk Busey, do you have a report?
I do. Just for clarification, so nobody gets the wrong date, November 10th is a Tuesday. So it's not another, that's when the town board will be meeting next month, November 10th and November 24th. I did attend the ethics and indemnification training by Attorney Mancuso, and suggested at the last town board meeting to Councilman Wilver, we have updated at least the town website as far as the zoning information for applicants and what they need to do for procedures in order to apply and what the timeframes are. So we did do that updating.
Thanks, Pam.
Yeah, you're welcome. The other thing is, I do believe Attorney Mancuso, did you submit the local law that you wrote up for the town board for the next meeting, or?
Yes, I did prepare the one on the updated document retention protocols.
Okay, so that will be for the next town board meeting.
Yeah, I provided it to the board. I will today, I believe, to all three members. I believe I submitted that, but it would be yeah, within the board's discretion to review that and then calendar a public hearing, which can be done certainly before year end, in advance of the January 1 cutoff.
Okay, all right, great. Thank you.
I thought we would take a peek at that tonight and then
Oh,
keeping people informed. It's pretty complicated. It's much more complicated than thinking you're going to get rid of the stuff in this drawer and call it a day.
right.
Doesn't work that way.
We used to be able to dispose things in, I think there was 100 pages. Now there's like 400 pages of
Oh, yeah.
information. So
Oh, yeah.
more rules. Thank you.
Is librarian Flass in the room?
She was not going to be reporting. She said everything was as normal and progressing.
I should have known you would have her report. Thank you.
Welcome.
How about our attorney, John Mancuso? Do you have a report for us?
No report.
I wish you would tell everybody that everybody passed your ethics class.
Flying colors.
Oh, okay, good. And now, not last or least, but John Limbeck, our building inspector.
Good evening. I included in my report, I sent the board a spreadsheet that I developed just real quick, and it just tracks the building permits that I've issued since I've been hired. Actually changed from what I had. We got 56 permits. I did another one today. And we've generated a total of $5,710 with those permits. 3 of those are for new single-family homes within the town. And I've got another property tomorrow on Rush Henrietta Town Line Road that's closing. And we've got their plans all approved and ready to issue a permit for that as well. So not seeing any drop off in people pulling permits whatsoever. I have been in contact with the building department in Ithaca because they just recently approved the installation of a solar farm in their community as well. And I asked them what they charge for building fees and found out that they base their permit fee on the cost of construction. And I just gave a little sample of that for the larger commercial installations that they do. There was a typo in there, which I apologize for, but from $750,000 to $1 million, they charge $3,000. From $1 million to $2.5 million, $5,000, and from $2.5 to just under $5 million, they charge $6,500. And then anything over $5 million, it's $1.35 per $1,000 value of improvement. And I did previously give the supervisor some recommendations on revisions for our fee schedule for 2021. And we might want to consider what we would want to do for the larger solar farms, just so that we've got something on record. Additionally, the gentleman in Ithaca told me that New York State does take issue with fees being charged for solar farm installations. The state is looking at these as alternative energy and doesn't want them hindered unnecessarily. But what they told me is they strongly suggested that either the planning board or the town board make one of their conditions of approval the requirement to obtain building permits. And that's probably the best way to make sure that we can collect for those installations. Other than that, Rick Tracy and I were working on several potential town code changes. Just updating things. We'll get those finalized and get those to the town board for their review and discussion. And lastly, been spending more time, some of the applications we've gotten for building permits look like they might require action by the planning board or the zoning board before a permit could be issued. So I've been including both of the chairmen in conversations so that we can provide the applicant with a roadmap of the things that they have to do, where they have to go, what they have to obtain. And they seem to appreciate a lot more rather than finding out halfway through the process that they have to go to another board. So we'll continue to do that going forward. So that's my report for this evening. Are there any questions I could answer?
I have
Hi,
one.
John. It's Amber. Oh, sorry, Supervisor. Go ahead.
Amber is first. A.
Oh, that's right. John, I know at the I sent you a quick email just a little while ago. The organizational meeting, we made our fee schedule to be determined for solar for 2020.
Okay.
So the town board, it was on our bucket list to get done. I would like to definitely get that worked on now that you have started with the process, and work with you so we can get this underway, since we
Okay,
do
that'd
have
be
these
wonderful.
facilities coming into our town. Great,
Perfect.
thanks.
I agree.
All yours,
And
Mr. Supervisor.
we should have that. We should have that already and waiting to go.
Okay.
John, my question goes back to the solar panel installation. In any of your contacts of talking with people, have you had any discussion about the amount of time that it takes for a building inspector to pay the proper attention to a solar array?
Ithaca was the first one that I spoke with, and they're unusual in that they provide electrical inspections on projects where we rely on one of the independent electrical inspection agencies. So they are charging separate fees for the electrical install. That would be the largest inspection. If you've got 20, what, I think this one was 28,000 panels, that's quite a bit of time for an electrician to be reviewing everything associated with that. So the quick answer is no, that hasn't come up, but it's going to be looking like something we need to do for these larger scale solar farms.
Thank you. I don't think anyone else has a question for you, John.
Okay, thanks, everybody. Appreciate the time.
So we will move on to old business. And the first old business item is the Rush Riverside Refuge, the dumping. Amber, do you want to comment on that?
Yes, I did speak with Highway Superintendent Mark David, and he has ceased dumping at the former Bosse's property and looks forward to working with the town board and the committee to work through this issue.
That's great. Glad to hear that. The second item under the Rush Riverside Refuge is the Fair Site Water, and I'll give you a little bit of update. You may recall that we entered into an agreement with the town of Henrietta on their local waterfront revitalization project. And the COVID, like it has done with so many things, slowed that way down to a crawl. But then it seemed to get somewhat resurrected in the past week. And we're going to be pursuing the water to the fair site, actually to some location on East River Road, which would eventually enable us to provide water to more than one building on the Bosse's property, but for sure to the fair site. We're not only looking at the local waterfront project, but we are also looking at a shared services agreement possibility with the town of Henrietta, independent of the local waterfront revitalization program. And we're also looking at what I call a local in-house program. Several people who know a lot more than I do about water line installation. And we're meeting again with that group. The reason why I'm into 3 different possibilities is because I know you can be working on something and all of a sudden it'll stop. I'd like to have a second option to go with to make sure that we do get water to the fair site and make sure that we do get water prepared for the future to run to one or more buildings on the Bosse's property. Now, Deputy Supervisor Mazzetti, do you have a comprehensive plan update?
Sure, I just created a doodle poll to send out, and Pam, I will send that to you so that you can put it in the minutes, and then I will also put it in the chat for everyone to fill out a doodle poll so that we can begin to meet over Zoom, unfortunately, to develop like a brainstorming session, get, any residents interested. I spoke with a couple of residents between last week and now and received some feedback. So I think that a good next step would be getting some citizens together and moving forward with just brainstorming some ideas of how to move forward.
Thank you. And you have an update on the web cameras.
So I do not have an update necessarily per se. I think I would open it up maybe for discussion and see if Dan or Amber or you had a chance to review the document that I created with the different web cameras. I did receive some feedback from some people that they have a preference for others, and they gave me their suggestions, but I didn't know if Dan or Amber had any other research that they had done independently.
It's Amber. I reached out to the town of Henrietta. I know someone that works in their building, and they're putting kind of their paperwork together for me, which I hope to be able to get to you by the end of this week.
Okay, and don't they use Facebook?
Yes, but they have a camera
Okay,
that they use.
so then that camera live streams probably to Facebook. Okay,
But I'm looking at the equipment part of
Okay.
it, so. And I'll get that to you by Friday,
thank you.
along with the rest of the board.
Dan, did you have an opinion either way?
Did you get any input from Dave Sluberski?
Yeah, we spoke when we were on the board meeting, and his feedback was very expensive.
That's what I'm afraid of.
And his feedback, I mean, it was very helpful, but it had a lot to do with production. And he recognized and, let us know that other towns have broadcasting capabilities such as a TV channel. So what he could offer would be more expensive, and I think more than we need. And we don't have a TV channel.
Probably. So basically, we're looking at a camera that would almost be set pointed at the board or at the audience, or
Yes. So when we were in that ethics training the other night, John was using one. So that's how we were able to see him and hear the voice. So the intent would be that would be sitting in the boardroom and that people could see us sitting at home. If they wanted to stay at home, if we came back to the boardroom in real life.
the only thing I'm concerned about is the quality of the picture, because it could be, that's, and I think there's always going to be a Zoom component going forward, so we should get equipment that's not going to be bad in a year or two. That's all.
Pam, was it you who mentioned to me a camera unit that would be mounted in the ceiling of the boardroom? And was that you?
Well, we do have Lantec that does our security cameras. So I was wondering if anyone talked to them to see if there is a dual purpose or if they have that capability within that organization.
Pam, would you mind sending me their contact information and I can reach out to them just to see if there's.
I think Supervisor Secretary would have that.
Okay, thank you. While we're on this topic, my internet is unstable. So Pam, I'm going to make you the host again.
Okay.
All done?
Yeah, how should we proceed forward with the cameras?
I think the most important thing that was just stated was what Dan said, and that is the quality of the image is very important for our use. We don't have to go to a TV station camera, but we certainly owe it to our residents to provide them with quality transmission of image. And I would also piggyback on that with quality transmission of audio.
Correct.
So I think, your continued discussions with someone who's pretty knowledgeable in that area, with someone like Dave Sluberski, and getting in touch with the Lantec vendor, that would probably add some information that could make sure that we provide audiovisual services that are acceptable to the people.
All right. I will reach out to Catherine to get that Lantec contact information. John, have you heard any updates from the governor? Any top secret?
No, unfortunately not. I'm in the same camp as all of my fellow town attorneys. Will wait with bated breath at the beginning of November for what is likely to be another executive order, but I will keep you posted.
Okay.
If I could just add a little bit of my own just experience with some of the technology. I've seen a lot of different pieces of equipment utilized. I think what it'll distill down to is sort of what the objective of the town board is for the nature of the product that it wishes to disseminate by streaming. So for example, there could be mounted cameras on the ceiling. There could be cameras that, like the OWL device, which sits on the table and provides the camera. That's the one that I was utilizing in the training session. That has a built-in microphone. The cameras that are mounted probably will need a separate standalone audio component to be able to grab the the audio of the room. And so, budgetary considerations and overall, product that you wish to deliver to stream it to YouTube are probably the considerations as to what the most appropriate product is.
It will be a work in progress. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Thank you, Victoria. And we can move on to Dan. Do you have an update for us on the future use of 1911?
But I think it's important that we get a questionnaire out to the registered voters or townspeople with what they want to do with the property. There was a suggestion that we have some kind of price attached to the rec center and the revitalization of the building itself. The one architecture firm I've talked to said that the price for, and this is just blind because he needs to take a look at it to see what's there. Then he needs to meet with a committee to see how they want it reconfigured to make it useful for the Welcome Center, museum, whatever's going to be there. But he said the price of that could run up to $800,000. He needs $10,000 just to look at it. I and there's all different. I mean, to make it passable as a municipal building, there's certain codes that it's going to have to meet. And I think you're going to be looking at least $500,000 to rehab it and make it useful for what we want. So we could put that on the questionnaire. Do you want the community center or a welcome center and a museum? It's going to cost in the neighborhood of this much. Or would you rather tear it down and put up a rec center, which is going to cost, we've got a rough estimate of 1.2 million, which, I mean, and then a rec center you could have a lot of different stuff in it, or you could have, nothing in it. It depends on what you want. The prices could be all over the place. But I think as a base, $500,000 for rehabbing the building and make it useful, and 1.2 million for a rec center, and put that on a questionnaire and see who, see what the people think.
Dan, would you take the initiative? Well, I should first ask, does the board agree with putting this out to the community to see what residents want? And if you do, if Dan could take the initiative to design that and then pass it by the board for approval and hopefully get this done sooner than later so that we can move on, that would be super duper.
Well, I think the 1911 committee's report on the building, which gets background on the building and possible options for the building, could be a letter that accompanies just a self-addressed postcard, rec center, museum, sent out to every household in the town.
That was rec center versus museum.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
I think you have to have the third possibility though, right? Because of what if they don't want to do either one?
Just demolish. And we have a cost on demolition.
So I know it history wise, what is the feedback? Is there a percentage when a written survey goes out? For those of you that have been in the town hall a lot longer than I have, is it a 10% return on sending it out to every household, a 15%? Do we have any data on that?
I don't recall anything like that happening in the past.
I remember one a long time ago, but
Yeah,
Yeah.
I remember one 15, 18 years ago where the return was, oh my gosh, minuscule compared to the population at that time. But nothing ventured, nothing gained. And
Last time
well,
that we,
how is the feedback coming back on the website? Because I think you have to think of technology as well, that we have technology to put a survey out there as well. I don't know if we have any information on that. I know that's coming up later in the, I don't want to put off our discussion for that. But I agree, we need to get a good idea from the residents, but at the same time, I don't think we can just put are you confident in those numbers, Dan, from the committee? As far as, I would hate to say, well, we could do X for this amount of money that we're putting on there. And then when we actually, if that's the winning decision, and then it ends up being a different ball of wax.
I would just like to get as much feedback as possible.
I agree. Yep.
I mean,
We got to
it could
start
be-
somewhere.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I think that's very important because I'm pretty sure we all want to do what the community wants. Not that what the board wants isn't important, but I think it should be a combination of choice. What the board wants, what the community wants, and then figure out how to go forward with it.
Right. We as the board, though, we have to have a defined plan, because as I was reading through the committee's report, this building's been going on for a while now. What decided not to rent it, but there wasn't a plan what to do with it once it was not rented, and now it falls on our shoulders. And we don't want to not have a plan to be able to report. So we need to get the information so we can make that plan.
100%.
So what are we doing? What's the plan?
I'll put together a questionnaire and we can put it on the website too. See what kind of response we get.
I just
Pam,
saw a little share screen from Jean Morelli. She said, has anyone thought about tearing it down and putting up a 3-stall farmer's market? I haven't thought about that, but that's interesting.
That idea was tossed around a bit when I first ran the committee of what we could do with that property.
That makes me want to ask, whatever happened to our open air farmers market behind the town hall?
Not a lot of interest.
Vendor or customer?
Customers. Traffic was kind of slow down there.
Hey, Jerry, this is Jeff. Can I answer on that?
Well, I think you would have some helpful answers, so yes.
So I helped with that farmer's market from the church over to the town, and it was both a lack of vendors and a lack of customers. There's fewer and fewer farmers, and the interest just wasn't there. It got down some days, it was just Jerry Bisping and myself.
Well, was location an issue?
No, that was not an issue, Deb. As far as at the Methodist Church, it was a little bit more visible, but we had vendors. We had a meat vendor and a bakery vendor that needed electricity, and the Methodist Church was not willing to run the electricity out to the parking lot, out to the lights because of some, I guess, the way the electric was installed. And that's after the committee decided and asked permission to the town board to move it to that back parking lot where there was electric and everything available. The vendors decided not to show up anyway.
Hi, this is Marianne Rizzo. I wonder if I could speak.
Go ahead, Marianne.
I know one of the options was said that you might tear it down, but as I recall, it's assessed for $130,000. I mean, it seems like we wouldn't want to, just tear down an asset, that we would sell it if we were going to tear it down. That doesn't seem like a good thing to put on the questionnaire. And the other thing is, if you envision a recreation center over there, to me, I don't think the imprint would be large enough, especially when you consider the parking. So I think I'd want to have that worked out in terms of the imprint before you put on the questionnaire, because, the townspeople could say, hey, I thought, what happened to this rec center? Well, it was never feasible, because it may not even be feasible with the imprint, the square footage.
You make a good point. Thank you.
Can I speak? This is Catherine.
Certainly, Catherine.
Okay, so I thought I was going to wait till the public be heard, but we have had a very, very poor turnout for the website survey, and the only way I put it in the newsletter, I also put it on the website, and then I received a significant increase, but it's still only about 70 responses, and that increase was because I sent it out through 2 of our email lists that are in town. And I think conversations are probably more meaningful. And I do question putting out a survey with these large price tags on it, because from previous experience with strategic planning, when we have a price tag on something like that, well then, we do not have the kind of, both of them would require a bond. But I do think we should be very cautious about thinking we're going to get feedback from 1,200 households through a survey tool, whether it's in the mail. It's a very expensive proposition to send it through the mail. And I think we might want to ask people when they come in to pay their taxes in January. I think we should be a little bit more creative in terms of having a few focus groups, having a few drop-in focus groups. And I think we should really—
Hey, Catherine.
Oracle Society present what their alternative was.
Catherine, I'm so sorry to interrupt. I'm very sorry. This is Victoria. It appears as though we have lost Pamela Busey.
Oh.
I got a text from Pam. It looks like her computer went down and I believe she's going to go home to get her other machine. So she might be delayed temporarily as she tries to log back in.
Right.
Victoria, at first I thought she went down. I sort of panicked.
Amber, did I make you co-host?
Let me look. You said, I knew you were headed somewhere.
Yeah, and I guess I would just like to ask about process.
Hang on 1 second, Deb. I just want to figure out this Zoom thing first before my internet goes and before Amber's internet goes. Then Jerry will be in charge.
Someone will be in charge. Yes.
Sounds like we need Green Stream or whatever it is.
I think you're co-host.
You have me as co-host. Yep. So I can help.
All right. I'm going to mute myself. And Jerry, the meeting is now in your control. Sorry to interrupt everybody.
Thank you. Thank you. We had Deborah Cusey who wanted to make a comment.
I guess I'm just confused about process. I didn't think that the open dialogue was part of the business meeting. I thought that open dialogue happened at the end. In the second public forum.
The open dialogue that you are witnessing now is content related. And I think that we are in such uncertainty, state of uncertainty, that I welcome that dialogue from people as long as it is focused on the content we are discussing.
Then I would like to interject on the 1911, because I agree with Catherine Hankins. You can't go out with a survey unless you are very specific around, are you willing to spend 500,000, 1.2 million, or whatever? I mean, you really need to be able to qualify or quantify the segments of what you're asking the survey people to respond to. Yeah, does everybody want a rec center? Of course they would, but are you willing to spend 500,000, 1.2 million, or 2 million? So I think it needs to be very quantifiable, and the business analysis needs to be done before the survey.
Thank you very much. And I'm sure that Councilman Woolliver, whose project this is very appreciative of all the input being suggested here, because he's the one who's going to drive it in the direction it's got to go. And, you know, if he can figure out a way to conduct a survey that is relatively very low in cost, but gives us some results from the community, that would be great. I think Catherine Hankins wasn't finished yet. Is that correct?
I think that's sufficient, but I would be very cautious in terms of not really looking at the Historical Society's proposal. I do think it's very, the other critical issue is Rush Riverside Refuge, that that was not available when the idea of a rec center was positioned on that property in 2008. So I think before we do any survey, if we thought about having, when people come in to pay their taxes, there's quite a number of people that come into the town, and any survey tool should be coupled with other opportunities for input. So it's just certain, it's not enough. I feel very comfortable with us going forward with a new website design, because we have multiple factors that are leading that. But for this, one survey, a postcard, it's going to be expensive, and it's not going to give credibility to any response that comes from that. So I'll be glad to help. I've designed lots of surveys, but 10% is 10% to 20% is actually considered okay, but it's not going to be meaningful in a situation like this. I think it would be very divisive to our community.
Councilman Woolliver, do you have enough information to go forward on, or would you
I'm
like
gonna
it?
try, but we gotta remember, we got a bad roof. We gotta we're gonna do something about it or forget about it.
Well, I would suggest that we do something about the roof for between, even if it's cost us $14,000, then to have a building go through the winter without the care and maintenance. There's certainly been enough money that's come in there, but that to me is not the question of how do you gain the input from the community. That was what I was responding to, but I'm very, and I agree that there's more than two choices for that property. And I think maybe there needs to be a little bit more of a discussion in terms before we even focus in on options. I don't think we've explored that. So, but I think hopefully Pam's back. So otherwise I'll have to take some minutes. All right. That's enough for me.
Thank you. Dan, is that enough for you at this time?
Yes.
Thank you very much. I want to move on to the next item, which is COVID expenses. I know I've reported on this before, but I think as long as they continue to go up in significant amounts, I will continue to keep the community aware. And currently, our COVID expenses are approaching $90,000. That hurts. It hurts big time, because it's money that's going someplace that we'll never see again, other than the assurance and the good feeling that we are keeping ourselves and our customers safe with some of the practices that require some of the equipment that we bought. So that's a good thing in that regard. The next item is the 2021 budget update. I think Dan Klimick previously expressed his opinion about that, and I don't need to reopen that. We have, the next item is the update on the Rochester Genesee Valley Railroad Museum and the Rush Recreation Park Association agreement. Is anyone prepared to speak on that?
Can you hear me, Jerry?
I can, Pam.
Okay, I have a real quick statement. Over 8 months ago, the Rush Recreation and Park Association and the Rochester Genesee Valley Railroad Museum began meeting with the goal of creating a mutually agreeable memorandum of understanding to submit to the town board for approval. The purpose of this MOU was to try and resolve conflicts that were created by a signed lease between the RGVRM and the town of Rush, which is in effect until 2025, and the signed MOU between the Rush RPA and the town of Rush, which is in effect until 2029. Our goal was to continue to move forward with the Rush RPA approved plan for developing a community riverfront recreational park that will preserve and protect the 100 acres. In addition, we intend to clean up the woods bordering the museum to protect habitat and minimize any impact on visitors. We also want to assist the museum to improve their security lighting, to expand their parking area to the north, and develop safe and secure, visually attractive outdoor storage for equipment. After much input and work by both groups, we jointly submitted the proposed MOU to the town board. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Pam. John Mancuso, do you have any comment to make?
Yes, I have, at the request of the supervisor, I have reviewed the information that was provided by the RRPA and the Railroad Museum. As I understand it, I think that was an accurate representation in terms of the objectives, the improvements that are proposed to be undertaken within the area that is that the Railroad Museum is looking for to expand into. I do believe that further work is necessary with respect to the structure of the memorandum of understanding and some other agreements that would likely be necessary in order to facilitate this collaborative, use on the town property. Essentially, in terms of the overall structure, what I believe would likely need to occur in order to adequately protect the town and its usage of the 100-acre parcel would be to likely enter into an agreement with the Railroad Museum for the property that they're looking to expand into. They currently do have a lease with the town through 2025, although that lease can be terminated in the town's sole discretion on 60 days notice. And so if some revision or alteration of the property is necessary, the town can certainly facilitate that. There is no time constraint in terms of having to wait, for example, until the lease would expire. It can be terminated early. I think from a conceptual standpoint, an agreement with the Railroad Museum in terms of where they wish to site this, these improvements, and then also a recognition within that document that the RRPA wishes to, as the stewards of that property under the current memorandum of understanding, that there would be some usage, non-exclusive usage between the town and the Railroad Museum as to some of those improvements, which I think can be certainly memorialized in the agreement that the museum may have with the town for that parcel, as well as potential memorandums of understanding between the RRPA and the Railroad Museum. And so I think the guts, the nuts and bolts of sort of the relationship is been elaborated enough to continue the process. I just think there's some additional agreements and legal procedures that the town will have to implement just to carry out its statutory requirements, since it is a municipality, which makes things a little more complicated than a private party. But I think, I applaud all the work that was done. I think there's certainly enough there to keep the ball moving forward.
John, I assume that you would have some phraseology upgrades that would eventually be shared with the Parks Group and the Railroad Museum. When might those be available?
You tell me, Supervisor, when the board is looking to create those documents. I mean, what I would suggest is that since the parties have worked collaboratively together, perhaps I can prepare, the initial document that might begin the contractual relationship between the town and the Railroad Museum and provide that to the town, and then most likely disseminate with your approval to those groups so that they can begin to review that consistent with the scope that they've outlined amongst each other, if that makes sense.
Would the board members like to have that completed in 2020?
I haven't seen any of this paperwork. Are there documents?
Thank
associated
you.
with their-
Thank
with
you.
their agreement?
Thank you, Dan. I was just searching my emails. I have not seen any of this paperwork, so I would not ready to comment on anything till I see something.
Understand.
Go ahead, Dan.
In looking at the email thread, it looks like it was just sent to the supervisor. You were not. It doesn't appear as though you were copied on that.
And
Yeah, okay. I'd like to see something.
Yeah, I did not
And-
get it either.
I in turn sent it to the attorney to get his opinion on it. But given that he has rendered his opinion, I would now be very happy to send it to the board.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And if, I don't know, Attorney Mancuso, if you have put in your opinion in writing, but given I was searching to try to find those documents while you were speaking, I would like to be able to have what you said in writing for me so I can look at this documents, because a lot of work has gone into what these groups have done. And we want to make sure that we are following through with our commitments.
Not a problem. I'm happy to provide exactly what I just said in written form so that you can review my opinion in conjunction with looking at these documents in terms of the next steps.
Thank you.
Thank you. I will look forward to your response, John. And in the meantime, I will share the original document with the board so they can set them side by side and see what your proposals are to the original. Everybody okay with that?
Yes.
All right. Then we've got to move on to new business, and the task before us is to schedule a public hearing to adopt the Silver Overlay District for Frontier Solar. We've got to schedule a public hearing to do that.
So I can speak to those items today. I circulated a draft of the proposed local law, which essentially is the process by which we amend the zoning map. So under town law, in order to amend a zoning map, since it's actually part of our code, you have to pass a local law to amend it. What we do is create the overlay district by essentially creating a meets and bounds of where that district's going to sit in the local law, and then that is reflected on the zoning map so that everybody understands that there's an overlay district that is sitting on top of the property that would house the forefront Tier 3 solar installation. The board has already approved that application, which was subject to receipt of additional approvals, which have been, two of which have been received by the planning board, having rendered their determinations last week on the special permit and the site plan. The applicant will now proceed to obtain an additional approval from NYSERDA. And one of the documents that you've also been provided is it's a one-page document that the applicant will submit to NYSERDA, which confirms that the town of Rush has provided the necessary local land use approvals for the project. And so the mechanics of this will be to schedule the public hearing on the local law, which is required under statute, and then approve the supervisor to sign the confirmation so that that can be submitted to NYSERDA. Once NYSERDA has signed off and approved the project, we will be able to then, if the board wishes to do so, adopt the local law after the public hearing is concluded to formally amend the zoning map, and that will conclude the process that was started back in November of 2019.
John, it's Amber. I can share my screen so I can show the residents where they can find that information, because I did see that the town clerk was able to put that up on the website. Would you like me to do that? If I can do it as well as the deputy supervisor normally does?
Sure.
We'll see.
That would be
All
helpful.
right. So if you're hopefully seeing the screen, this is the Town of Rush website. This is under the miscellaneous documents. So the proposed local law that Attorney Mancuso, you would just click on that. And this is the proposed document for the local law change to create the zoning map. This is the overlay district map. And again, it's a public hearing coming up, so.
And Alex, one thing I want to explain on the map.
I was going to ask you to do that. Thank you.
Perfect. So everyone is aware of sort of where we're talking about. It's hard to see unless you zoom in, but effectively what's surrounding this facility itself is a series of courses and distances. And that's effectively going to be the outer bounds of the overlay district. And so it effectively wraps around the facility, and the overlay district is limited to effectively enough area to encompass the project and just the project, because the overlay is designed to authorize the use. And so it need not be any more expansive than where the use is happening, which is effectively the project site. So for example, you don't need to encompass the whole property. And so all the other portions of the property will remain their current zoning, R30, and all the uses that are permitted in the R30. The only thing that'll be different is this little pocket, which will be an overlay district that contains the project, since it's for the solar facility.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So the board will need to do two resolutions. One would be to authorize the supervisor to sign the confirmation form. The second is to schedule the public hearing. I believe the town clerk provided the public hearing resolution to this board. So someone should probably have that in the list of resolutions.
We've got that, but we don't have the NYSERDA one, at least.
And I can introduce that one, since that one is a quick little one sentence.
Would the board like me to read the resolution for the public hearing?
Please
Sure.
do that.
All right. I so move to schedule a public hearing of local law number 2 of 2020 to amend the Town of Rush zoning map to create a solar energy system overlay district for Forefront Power LLC, development of a tier 3 solar energy system at 8427 West Henrietta Road, Rush, New York, on November 24th at 7:15 p.m. in the offices of 5977 East Henrietta Road, Rush, New York, and on Zoom pending Governor Andrew Cuomo's executive order.
I'll second
Okay, we
that.
need a second. Thank you.
Councilman Wolver,
Aye.
Councilwoman Corbin,
Aye.
Supervisor Cusey,
Aye.
And then the second resolution would be to authorize the town supervisor to execute the confirmation of local land use approval for the Forefront Power project.
Also move.
John, can you explain that? Is this isn't is this for him to sign the NYSERDA paperwork, or this is for what?
This is for the NYSERDA paperwork. Do you want me, I can share my
Okay.
screen if you want me to throw it up there.
If you wouldn't mind,
Yep, not a problem. Let me
just
see
so
if I
everyone
can.
at home as well.
Hang on, John, I probably have to make you another co-host. All right, try now.
Perfect. There. Can everyone see that document there?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So this document's a one-page document. Effectively, what it outlines is that the important section is here. You'll see that this just outlines the 4 dates by which the town approved the seeker, approved the solar overlay, and then approved the special permit and site plan. So this document will be submitted with their other materials to NYSERDA.
And this is specific to one property?
This is specific just to 8427 West Henrietta Road
Thank
and
you.
the Forefront project in particular. Doesn't apply to anything else.
Thank you.
John,
Thank you,
why does
John.
NYSERDA require that particular document? If you can educate us on that. They explained it at the planning board, but
Yeah, so effectively, in order for them to obtain approval from that agency is not going to authorize interconnection and the other aspects of the energy side of the approval until such time as it's confident that the local municipality has actually given this applicant the right to construct this project effectively. Because the issuing their approval would be of no significance if the local municipality is not going to allow it. So they want that as confirmation before they go through their process of authorizing, from an energy perspective, the project to proceed.
thank you. Well said. I'm ready.
Thank you. Did we have someone?
I think Councilman Wolver so moved the resolution that I introduced.
Okay. I'll second that.
Councilman Wolver,
Aye.
Councilwoman Corbin,
Aye.
Supervisor Cusey,
Aye. Okay, we've got another approval of the board, and that is for some upgrades to record retention. I don't think, Pam, that we need a public hearing on that. I think if you can give an explanation of the changes that will be incorporated, if we have a board vote, that should suffice. How about you, John? Do you agree with me?
Well, the only issue is that we have our code provision actually is overly specific as to the particular document retention policy that was in place at the time the code was originally adopted. I think from a efficiency standpoint, I think the code should be slightly modified to remove the restriction of the actual delineated plan. It's a MU1 was the one that was in place for a long period of time, and now it's got a different moniker essentially. It's not needed in the code. The code simply memorializes what I would propose is that it should be broad enough to simply suggest that as the state education department adopts the actual policy for municipalities to follow, that our code should simply be consistent with that it should authorize on a however many year basis it happens. And this is, so something that hasn't needed to be done, but may need to be done in the future if policies change again, that it doesn't need to be done a second time. So sort of fix it, and then it'll be done permanently, so that moving forward, a resolution will be all that the town board would need to do. Does that answer your
Pam?
question, Supervisor?
Yes. Pam?
So you don't need a change in the law at all as well, right, Jen?
I
Or
would,
do you?
I would recommend that we pass a local law to slightly modify that section to delete the reference to the MU1 and simply reference the document retention policy that's promulgated by the state education department. That way, as it's amended from time to time, if a new one is promulgated, let's say in 2025, the board can just adopt a resolution to adopt that as the retention policy, and we don't need to pass a local law ever again.
We have to go by the law that's on the books now, though. Is that correct?
Yes.
Technically speaking, yes, but what I would tell you is that the municipalities are going to be obligated to adopt and comply with the new document retention policy. And so we'll have a law that's just inconsistent with what the state is requiring the town to do. And so it's minimalistic to just adopt something to clean up that section of the code. And so, since it's before, since the town clerk brought it to my attention and we have a couple of months before it becomes effective, it made sense from a timing standpoint to just have that before the board for its consideration.
Any comments from the board? Comments from the clerk?
None.
I have a comment per your previous discussion saying if you have a comment relevant to the discussion, I can comment now. Or I can wait till the second, the open comment period.
The open comment period would be very appropriate. Thank you.
Okay.
So Pam, I think the only timing standpoint is it has to be, technically speaking, it should be updated before January 2021. Is that right?
Correct.
So it's,
Can we put it on the agenda for the next meeting then?
Yeah.
Since it wasn't on,
Yep, certainly
would
could
that
be.
be okay, Supervisor?
We'll put it on the agenda to change our local law and to also adopt the proposed changes to
LGS 1.
to the LGS 1. Is everybody comfortable with that?
Very good.
Thank you. All right, number 2 under new business. In the intent to be transparent, people may on the street hear that we're going through sexual harassment training, and that is true. We have a training session coming up, and I just want everyone to know that there's not a specific event that's causing that. It is a state requirement that we go through that training and educate every one of us, including me, to go through that and certify to the state that we have accomplished that. So that's what that will be all about if you hear about it. And we also have a request to update our town website, a proposal to upgrade our town website. The current website, I believe, is 11 years old, and it's had a lot of complaints because it's very difficult to navigate. And we need to make, as I look at other websites, I look at them and I say, oh, we need to make some updates to ours. So Catherine Hankins and I believe Pam Busey has been working on this, and I hope I haven't forgotten anyone. Would any of you like to make a comment on this?
and Amber Corbin. So we've worked on this. We've created a survey tool, and we have canvassed many of the websites that are out there. Pam, you could speak to this. She's on the Clerks Association, so she has reached out to municipalities, not only in this region, but across the state. And we have some very specific legal requirements for our website that we really don't meet, accessibility being one. So in addition to efficiency, we should really have a website that's more accessible. So what we're asking the board to do is to authorize a request for proposals that could give us feedback. It's a pretty a detailed RFP that was a template that was given to us by a vendor and then adapted by looking at other sites. So we're under no obligation to accept any of the proposals that come back, but this way we start to have a more in-depth understanding of what is possible. We've tried to make sure that it's not no bells and whistles, but at the same time, recognizing that we have staff as well that have to be able to help residents that come in to access the information. And so we need to just update it. And it's been on the budget for at least 3 to 4 years. So this is really just getting the job done, and I think it will make sure that a lot of things are more efficient, but also better communications. So I hope we can move forward.
Thank you, Catherine. Has everyone had a chance to look at the document?
Yes, it is very detailed.
Well, you helped design it.
Well, no, I didn't do this part. I didn't work on the RFP.
And I apologize to you
very
for
well
not,
done.
I apologize
That's
to you
okay.
for not mentioning your name.
All right, it's all good.
Has Dan and I'm sure Pam is comfortable with it.
What was the
I
email
just want to
title?
see if Attorney Mancuso has had a chance to look it over.
I did not look it over, but I certainly can if the board wishes for me to do so.
I would like to have that happen because we're talking about a significant expense here. And we're talking about relationship with vendors.
Okay. Happy to look at it. And should I follow up with Catherine and Pam directly?
Yeah, so the way it's not due to go out until next Tuesday. So that was the expectation that with the board's approval, Attorney Mancuso would review and make sure that he sees the clauses that says there's no obligation to accept any of the proposals that come back, and that it's very clear that there's no agreement with the lowest bidder.
Okay.
Or anything like that. So that would be really good, but it's not, we can change these dates going forward, but we just want to make sure that we're moving into the holiday season, and staff, we just want to make sure we have a team available in December, and I think that would be good.
If we could have a resolution pending attorney review and approval, that would be excellent.
Yes, why don't we do that?
Yep, I don't have any problem with that. If you want to authorize the issuance of the RFP for the updating of the town website, subject to review and approval by the town attorney.
That's exactly what I was going to say, John. Do I have a second?
Catherine, I'm sorry to interrupt. Catherine or Pam, could you share it with me? What was the title of the email?
You didn't get it, Victoria.
No, I think I did. I just can't find it.
Tuesday at 2:14 p.m. I think is the email.
From whom?
Secretary, supervisor, secretary email account.
All right, hang on. Just give me a second to look for it.
I can forward it back to you if you want.
I just forwarded it to her again.
All right.
I got the sexual harassment one, and that's it.
That's not what this is about.
Yeah,
It was,
Okay, can we just?
all right, there it is, got it. Thank you, you guys can
Pam-
continue, thank you.
Thank you. All right, I
So
propose
I
that
s-
we put it on the agenda next time for a approval of the board.
Well, I think
we're
the town clerk made a suggestion, Supervisor, to pass a resolution tonight pending attorney review.
Yeah,
Was
when-
that what it was?
Review and
Yes.
approval.
Because the
I-
timeline that's in it would push it back.
And I
We
took the
don't need
risk of
that.
telling John, that's exactly what I was gonna say, John. Do I have a second?
Second.
Councilman Williver,
Aye.
Councilwoman Corbin,
Aye.
Supervisor QC.
Aye. All right. We've got future dates for boards, and I want to make sure that everyone knows we are at the present time today operating under the governor's orders of Zoom being allowed or not in-person meetings being allowed up until November 3rd. I'm going to go out on a limb and say that I think that order is going to be extended based on what I hear about COVID uprisings all over the place. If he doesn't extend that order, that's fine. But if he does extend that order, then we will continue to operate on Zoom. And the board dates are Conservation Board, November 5th, the Town Board, November 10th and 24th, the Planning Board, November 17th, and the Zoning Board, November 12th. That takes us into our next public comment period. And I know there's at least one woman who wants to speak in that comment period. And just remember, this is where you can ask questions and hopefully get answers, make comments, just be civil, be courteous, and remember there are other people in attendance. Please
Thank you.
have at it. Thank you.
Thank you, Jerry. I just wanted to reiterate Pamela Busey's point that the November 10th and 24th are Tuesdays. Everyone write it on your calendar. It's a Tuesday, not a
Oh, that's right.
Wednesday.
Thank
And
you.
don't
I
forget to
forgot.
vote. All right, the first person is Marianne Rizzo because she emailed me. And then after Marianne, it'll be Deb QC, then Jeff Werner and Pamela Waite. If you could say your name and address for the record, that would be very helpful. So Marianne, are you there?
Yes, can you hear me?
We can hear you.
We can hear you.
Thank you. Mary Ann Rizzo, 25 Stoll Road. So again, I'm back on the 1911 property, and I'm thinking back, I'm not sure when we acquired the property, and so I'm going to ask a few questions here. So my first two questions are, when did we acquire the property? Was it 2014? Can't remember.
2006, I think.
Okay. And, okay, yeah, 14 years ago, that's where I had the 14. Okay. And so what was the, as I understand it, was there a resolution to purchase it for the historical museum, historical society? That's how I understand it.
There was not, and having heard three different scenarios expressed to me, I went to Bill Eudicious, who was supervisor at that time, and he told me that the reason for acquiring that property in 2006 was to finish off the ownership of campus footprints in the hamlet. They had no intended use for that property. They just wanted to make sure that no private ownership encroached into the campus footprint. He told me about a year later, Bill Meister suggested that that would be a good place to put a museum for the history of the town. And according to Bill Udicious, that is how that got started.
Okay.
The town got a $100,000 grant from, I think it was Jim Alisi to use towards the purchase of the property. And the paperwork, I think, just said for future development was the
Yes.
only remark on the grant.
Okay, so there wasn't any prior town board's vision or decision or anything like that
Correct,
for a historical society
correct,
or a museum?
correct.
Okay. So I just wanted to get an idea of the $500,000. What does that get? What does that get us about approximately? Does it gets us a roof? Does it probably get us a chairlift? Gets us some refurbishing the inside, maybe outside. It sounds like a lot of money, and I'm sure it all costs a lot of money. But what does that really get us? I just want to better understand that price.
That's a ballpark stab at an idea that might be coming down the road. We have no specifics. We have nothing to really base a price on. But the architectural firm I talked to said he's worked on a lot of projects, and you could easily spend $800,000 on it. And it's all over the place. It depends on what you want. And,
Right,
and that have to be determined by a committee down the road after we decide to actually save the building.
I just think that, depending on, what the vision is and who we talk to.
We don't know yet.
That if it was going to be a historical society as one of the options on the questionnaire, then I think we might come up with a couple different numbers there to put $500,000. It just sounds like, well, it does sound like a lot. Maybe it'd be 300. I don't know. I mean, I'm not, okay. So that's just my question. What are we getting for the 500,000?
Well, you
So
need
my next question, sorry.
You need everything. It needs, and depending on the configuration of the inside, you might have to move walls around. You're going to need probably 2 ADA compliant bathrooms, ramps. It needs new windows. There's no insulation. It needs a new roof. It needs
a lot.
A lot.
Yeah, electrical, plumbing.
Probably should run a gas line to it. Everything.
Okay, so that's probably a good number. All right, so then in terms of the recreation center, the 1.5 million, 1.2 million, so what is that getting us? I just wonder because, does it include a track, a gym, a basketball court, fitness center? I just wonder. I guess I'm sort of comparing it to Henrietta. I don't really know that much about what a lot of rec centers. I know many of you belong to a gym and that, and I'm thinking about Henrietta Rec. I'm thinking about the imprint of that. The square footage. I'm thinking about the square footage of the parking. We're a smaller community. I have heard people in Henrietta say, "Oh, the rec center there, there's not much there." And I went there and I walked the track and I looked at the gym and everything, or the basketball courts, and saw kids doing gymnastics. And for someone to say, "Well, there's really not much there." I mean, are people expecting a pool? Are they expecting racquetball? Or I'm just wondering, what do you get for $1.5 million? Do you get what Henrietta has, or how much did Henrietta spend on that? Does anybody?
We were looking at like a basketball court, a couple of meeting rooms. It's something that we could rent out, almost like the pavilion, but with a greater capacity. Maybe a small kitchen. It's still to be determined, but you can easily spend 1.2 million.
So I think that if you say a rec center, I guess to say 1.2 million and to have it, that's like a bare bones rec center, which
Yes,
I just want people to understand when they're the 1.2 million. I don't know, it's just hard with the questionnaire. I understand we're just putting the feelers out and everything.
We have to start somewhere.
And then, so how much did the Henrietta rec center cost? Does anybody know?
No. I don't.
Over 2.5 million. I did the
Thanks.
square footage cost to get something like that, and that's when I was on the 1911 project with Victoria. We just did a ballpark, and do people really understand what the scope of this expenditure is? Let's put it out there. It's a huge amount, and if you just simplify the scope, it's a huge amount of money. And can we even afford that?
Or are the residents, willing to, pay for it?
Exactly. So put it out there that what are the range of expenditures you're willing to support? And yes, and I agree with you totally, Mary Ann, you need to put some parameters around. Well, this gives you a playground, this gives you a sauna, and this gives you a pool. But these are the ranges of what you're talking. Oh, this is air conditioned and this isn't. So it's a huge amount of money, and I did a ballpark on the cost per square footage, and it's well over $2 million.
Yeah, I thought it would be, just for something that, well, I don't know. So I thought it would be more. So I also wonder about the square footage, the campus area there, and what the building would take up, what the parking would take up. I really don't think, unless we took away every bit of grass, every bit, and made the whole parking lot, made it all parking lot, and you're right up to the book drop and everything. I really don't think there's enough room for, if we're trying to really get people there, if that's the whole reason is utilization, we want people to come, our residents, our citizens. So it's just, I want you to think about, if we do want a rec center, maybe the BOCES land is the place for the rec center. I'm not saying we should have one or we should pay for one, but if we're going to do one, it's a park and recreation area. Maybe that's the better spot for it. And I think that's all I got.
Thank you, Mary Ann and Debbie.
Thank you, Mary Ann. All right, Deb, then Jeff Warner.
So Deb QC 55 Rotzel Road, West Rush. A couple things. I want to first thank Dan Klimek for pulling together and following up with the information relative to the revenue breakdown. It just tantalized me relative to information and data. And I have some ideas on maybe a dashboard for tracking the key things for the Rush budget. What should we be tracking? And maybe that's something that we put on the website that says, wow, is revenue up or expenses down? How are we looking? And that's what I do, and I love it. And I really appreciate, Dan, you following up with that. And I got that through Jerry, and I really appreciate that. The second thing I wanted to mention is I remember the last meeting, we had a citizen talk about the property on Route 15, I think it is, and she was quite emotional relative to the whole issue of the property being close to the road and what was going on. And I just wonder why that isn't on the agenda and we're not following up with that. And to that same degree, I wonder why you're not putting on the agenda the issue of the house on 15, just right down the road from the intersection of West Rush Road, that has been what I understand, it costs the town $56,000 in litigation fees. And what's going on with that? That doesn't seem to be at the forefront in front of taxpayers as to what's going on with that. And to build on what Pam was talking about as far as documentation of procedures, I guess when I think about if I were a taxpayer coming into the town, what information am I privileged to as far as what is being held in a record retention that I'm able to go in and look up at any time? Are those procedures documented anywhere that, oh yes, as a taxpayer, I'm entitled to getting this information, and this should be readily available to me as a taxpayer. I guess I don't understand where that's available for me to question that and, you know, oh, can I go in and get a listing of what were the requirements of, say, our property relative to septic requirements? Can I go in, is that something that I should expect to be able to go into the town and get? Or is that something that I should always rely on the builder or the architect to provide to me? Or is that something that's on file because I had to file a permit with the town to go in and get those records? So I'm just wondering if that's available easily to the taxpayers relative to the discussion tonight on documentation.
I think I've got to respond to you because I don't think Pamela is on.
I'm on.
Oh, well, then you're the one to respond to this last inquiry.
Well, the biggest thing is the retention information in the document that we're talking about tonight is how long to hold documents and what documents can be destroyed and what documents need to be kept permanently. So as far as going into the town hall, for example, a septic information is not filed in the town hall, but those information things can be foiled. They're actually, septic stuff is filed down with the Department of Health. So there are some things that are available. Residents cannot just come in and walk into the office and expect to get immediate service of pulling the files, because there are laws that help every town and municipality to be able to extract all the information that is needed to give to the resident, instead of pulling it on a dime when they come in and not having the full gamut of what really should be provided to them.
And I totally respect that. And so if I were a taxpayer, if I could go on the website and just understand what my expectations are, what can I expect to go in and get at any town? Can I get this information? No, towns aren't required to do that. But I guess I'm just looking for, because I've Googled it and I don't know if it varies by town or it's our town's decision that we don't do it, or it's a requirement in New York State, to your point, Pam, that the health department doesn't allow that. But it's not easily accessible if you're trying to figure out what to do with your home. How do I find out this information? What was filed on my building permit? How do I find this information out?
Most of residents or people that are buying houses and want to know about a resident, they do submit a Freedom of Information request, and we'll pull any and all information that they want, as far as if we have, sometimes we do have the septic information on file. Sometimes we do have a deed on file. Sometimes we do have the prints that go back to 1980, but prints that go back to 1957, we might just have 2 pieces of paper for the building permit. So it's.
Well, I guess that's what my question is. Why isn't standard? Why isn't it known that, yes, when I go to the town, this is what I can expect to get? Or it's just this random thing. Hey, you get what you get. It depends on what we stored at the time. I guess that's what I'm kind of just searching for. Is there a standard repository of information that the town is required to hold for residents, or isn't there? And I don't need to belabor this, but I'm just posing the question. That's all.
Not specific, but the document that is going to be accepted for retention is over 400 pages.
Yeah, I get it. And I don't know if it's a digital micro, they used to have microfilm. Kodak was big into it, So,
Right.
I don't understand the standard process. I guess that's what I'm frustrated with.
It's hard, Debbie, to standardize processes such as these, and let me give you an example. The town did not adopt the uniform code until, I think it was 1967. It might have even been later than that. So everything that comes under the adoption of the uniform code should indeed be available in the town street files.
I know,
Or
and
the-
all I'm looking for is.
I'm not
what-
done yet.
Okay,
Or in the town computer. Things that took place before the adoption of the uniform code would result in, as Pam said, the 2 pieces of paper, nothing more, or maybe a lunch bag, nothing more. So the standardization exists today, but it didn't exist historically.
and I guess all I'm asking is, where is it stated that the only record that's required to be maintained by the town after 1964 are, quote, these documents? And then the rest you're on your own. I don't know where that is. That's all I'm trying to just get at these document procedures that you were talking about today. I don't know what I can expect is my statement. If I went in, am I expecting an unrealistic thing that I'm going into the town after 1964 and saying, hey, do you have this document? I don't know what I can expect that they're retaining. I guess that's all I'm saying.
If I can add something, maybe I'll try to clarify it, hopefully, and if I fail, I apologize. So there's two separate issues with that question. The first is, what are the legal requirements for the town in terms of document retention and disposition? And so that's what was talked about tonight, the actual 400 pages of requirements of what a municipality must do in terms of retention and disposition, broken down by so many categories and subcategories of types of documents that it'll make your head spin. But it effectively goes through a list and a litany of different categories of documents that have to be retained, don't have to be retained, can be disposed of, can't be disposed of, how many years they have to be maintained, and those sorts of things. But as the supervisor indicated, that is prospective in terms of what's going to happen when this new policy goes in. But this policy has evolved over time. And so municipalities have been governed by different retention and disposition requirements over the years. And so it's very difficult to suggest, if you come in and ask for something about a property, that you may see the same documents that a different property may have. It'll be entirely dependent on what happened and when to a particular property or particular subject matter. If it was pre-uniform code, as the supervisor indicated, maybe it was 1982, maybe it was 2012. Whatever year that happened and what happened, depending on what the requirement was, it may or may not exist digitally, it may or may not exist in hard copy, or it may not exist at all. And so it's incredibly hard to have an absolute answer. Which is why ultimately it's sort of incumbent upon the person who's interested in getting more information to request through a FOIL or otherwise through the town clerk for particular documents, and then they investigate to see what they can find and where it's located, because it could be in a couple of different places.
Thank you. So basically what you're saying is it's been inconsistent for every year as far as requirements, and nobody has been accountable or holds people accountable to doing that. It's kind of like you get what you get and you're on your own.
I wouldn't say that. I mean, what I would say is that over time, the policy has been updated. I don't know how many iterations it's gone through, but there's been enough over, the last 5 decades or so that the nature of what's required to be maintained and how has evolved as technology has evolved, as government has evolved in terms of the types of documents that exist. It's not a haphazard system, but it's hard to predict or guarantee that if you walked into the town hall tomorrow and said, I want all of the building permits that have been issued for XYZ property in the town of Rush, that the town clerk would be able to locate those if they exist in a certain format, because it'll depend on when that building permit was issued and what laws were governing at the time. That's the problem.
Right, and I guess, and so, and then I try to think about the broad perspective of our planning board and all that, so yeah, it's quite a quagmire as far as that is concerned, so thank you, was thinking about that from a citizen's perspective, and I appreciate that input from both of you, thank you.
Let me put one more thing to rest. You mentioned the small house just north of the West Rush Route 15 intersection. That house was with the town litigation. It was settled, and that's no longer an issue to be considered by the town.
But it's an eyesore, and it's
Well,
just sitting there.
that's a different issue. If it's an eyesore, you file a complaint with the code enforcement officer, and he will respond to that complaint. But you've got to have something that you feel is an eyesore, which is covered by the existing code. You just can't say, I don't like the architectural appeal of that house. You've got to say, I don't like the 40-foot flagpole sticking out of the peak.
No, I guess I was just following up with the meetings before about what the outcome of the conversation with the person with the barn that was placed too close to the road, and I didn't hear anything about it.
That is still an open case that we are not talking about because we don't know what course of action that case is going to take.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right.
All right, Pamela Jeff, Pamela, Catherine. State your name and your address for Pamela Busey, please.
Okay, thank you, Victoria. Jeff Warner, 8427 West Henrietta Road, Rush, New York. I had must be a little glitch with my audio. Could one of the board members entertain me in reading back the public hearing for the Forefront Property Overlay District? That's my first question. I've got a follow-up question also. If somebody could just reread that.
Sure, Jeff, it's Amber. Oh, sorry,
Okay.
John.
Nope, you take it.
John, or sorry, Jeff, are you referring to when is the public hearing going to be held, or do you want me to read the whole?
No, I don't need the whole thing, Amber. I heard, you started reading the resolution or somebody started reading it, and then I didn't hear the date and time and all that stuff.
It is set for November 24th at 7:15 at the town hall. And again, with COVID, if the governor extends it, pending Zoom.
Okay, all right, thank you. So that's be the Tuesday, the second board meeting of the month, which is Tuesday, November 24th.
Right, and that's for local law number 2 of 2020 to establish the Solar Energy System Overlay District.
Okay, all right. All right, thank you for that. My second question is, I know that the town has acquired the services of Gary Abraham for Horseshoe Solar, but I haven't heard any updates. And Amber, you usually give the updates of the solar. So I've got some questions, I guess, just curious. I know we're paying him, but the funds would be intervenor funds. So I guess a couple questions would be, have we received intervenor funds from the Horseshoe project that they have put the money up? What's he working on? How do we find that information out as residents? Are there minutes? Are there meetings? And then who's guiding Mr. Abraham? Who does he meet with, and where's the information?
Supervisor, would you like me to take that part of it?
I would like you to take part of it. Yes.
All right, I'll start off. Yes, Jeff, actually, most of the questions you asked, I'll be happy to answer, can also be found on the DPS website. The intervener funding awards were given out. And the town does not get the funds. The state keeps the funds. And Attorney Mancuso can clarify if I misspeak at any point. And then the town sends that paperwork to be reimbursed through the intervener funds. So when an award is given out, we don't just get a blank check to write checks to the different attorneys or groups or whatever type of work is being done on behalf of the town. So right now, things are quiet. The whole process was leading up to the intervener funding application awards. And that's what is the current status right now.
I will just add to that, Jeff. You can take time to get on that website and click on any additional filings that have been made by Gary Abraham or anyone else. You can see who has applied for party status. You can see who has submitted letters. It's an easy read to follow on that website and determine what has Gary Abraham done to date, because it's all filed there. Hello?
Jeff, you're on mute,
Jeff,
Jeff.
have we answered
You were
your
trying to
questions?
talk.
Is there more?
Okay. Sorry about that. So the website that I would go to again is the New York State.
I think there's a link on the town website to that. Is that correct, Councilman Corbin?
Yes, there
There
is,
is.
under large scale solar. Yep.
Okay,
You
all
can,
right.
and Jeff, I'm not trying to say I can't help answer that. I'd be happy to, but truly you can find Caledonia, you can find every single document that's filed on anything.
Okay, all right. So I guess the follow-up question is, there's been a certain amount of intervener funds awarded to the town of Rush specifically for this project. And am I understanding correctly that, so we would pay Gary Abraham and then we get reimbursed from the state who's holding those funds?
Correct. That's exactly when Attorney Mancuso was the attorney for the town, the first round of intervener funds. He applied for that. He would send his invoices to the town, and then the town sends those to be reimbursed from Albany, and then they send the funds back to reimburse the town.
Okay, so the town is out the money momentarily until the intervener funds come back to the town. All right, so then maybe the follow-up, I guess you've answered those, but who's guiding Gary? Is it the town board? And do you meet with him, or how is that going? How are you proceeding with using his services?
Well, that's almost as complicated a question as Debbie's question about records retained, but basically Gary works at the direction of the Rush Town Board, and there was a little switch to that where Gary and Ben Wisniewski decided to join forces. And it's my understanding that Gary is now the lead attorney on that collaborated force in dealing with Horseshoe Solar. Now, what were the directions given to Gary Abraham? It was opinions of the board that we were not happy with Horseshoe Solar taking such a position in the town of Rush. And before that got litigated, our indigenous peoples moved in, and they are now causing a bigger headache for Invenergy than the town of Rush ever thought of causing. I take the liberty of saying that, but that's my opinion by following the legal filings and the letters, et cetera, et cetera. Amber, would you dispute me on that, or would you agree with me?
The area that Horseshoe is proposing is highly archaeologically and culturally sensitive. And Jeff, one of the deficiencies that the state found through the Article 10 process was just that. And then the attorney for the Seneca Nation of Indians, you can read his letters on the DPS website as well. And they are definitely involved because it is their ancestors are buried there, and they want to have a voice in it.
Okay, I guess I under, so now with the Seneca Nation coming in, has the town of Rush sidestepped a little bit or taken a back seat and are letting them take the lead and seeing where they go?
Not with any official declaration, Jeff, but I spoke with Gary just last week, and I said, okay, Gary, where are we going? And he said, we're going where I am, and that is we're waiting to see what happens.
Okay. Jerry, you mentioned a gentleman by the name of Ben Wisniewski. Who is he with?
Ben was the attorney representing the RUSH citizens.
Okay.
And Jeff, not that I want to give a plug to any sort of publications, but there's an electronic article right now out on the Livingston County News on that site that you might find very interesting to read. It was just came out on their website today.
You said the Livingston County News?
Mm-hmm.
I saw something in a sorry about that. I saw something in one of the newspapers on the magazine rack of the Seneca Nation and the happenings that have happened over there. I guess Amber, going forward, if you could just, I always appreciate your updates. And if you could update us, seeing your tied to the solar, I guess under your town council member report, I'd appreciate it. That'd always be nice.
I will do that.
All right, that's all. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you, Jeff.
All right, thank you, Jeff. Pamela.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yep, just say your address
We
for
can.
Pamela. Easy.
Okay, it's Pamela Waite, 431 Five Points Road. I'm also the treasurer of the Rush RPA. And I just wanted to say that the Rush RPA welcomes Attorney Mancuso's review of the joint MOU that we jointly submitted with the RG, the museum. And we'd appreciate him sharing any recommendations he has for us and the museum. Thank you.
Thank you, Pam.
All righty, and last but not least, Catherine. And if you could just say your name and address for Pamela.
Catherine Hankins, 2353 Pinnacle Road. I just wanted to, I looked up quickly on Google, and it was a $9.7 million bond for the Henrietta Recreation Center. It came in under budget to $8 million. So I think it just, again, raises this awareness that perhaps before we go knock on citizens' doors and ask a question that raises more questions than answers, we really start to look back to what Victoria is doing and launching, which is this comprehensive plan. Because in a good comprehensive plan, we would ask citizens what are those interests and what is the value that they put on those interests. And I do think that the Rush Recreation Park Association has tried to do some of those inquiries in terms of the 100 acres. And we came back with a real sense of passive recreation rather than more active recreation that costs a lot of money to maintain. So before we build a recreation center on the corner of our town center, our hamlet, maybe we should try to look at this comprehensive plan. So I just wanted to raise that awareness that it was a $8 million project. Thank you.
Catherine, does that figure include the $900,000 retrofit of air conditioning? Because people couldn't use the building, it was so hot, so they had to retrofit $900,000 worth of AC.
Well, they had a $9.7 million bond that was passed by their citizens. So I think that may be, we really need to ask our citizens what kind of a bond. They just finished paying the bond on the town hall less than, what, 3 years ago now. So it has not translated into reducing the tax pressure on our citizens because we finished that. So to go into another bond, I think is really a very serious matter and should be tied to what Victoria is launching in terms of a comprehensive plan. So I just pulled it from the newspaper. So, but maybe they had more money. If they had already gotten that approval and they came in under budget, they had money for that $970,000 improvement. But one thing leads to another. The other is that through the Historical Society, I canvassed all of the historical societies across Monroe County. And I didn't ask the question how much it cost, but they took a building that was a historical building rather than incur all the costs to rehabilitate it. So they did not, and there are provisions that do not require the kind of extravagant rehabilitation for historical buildings. So I think there's more homework to be done before you go and send a postcard to citizens and expect something that would be worth and valuable for us to resolve. Thank you.
Well, there are certainly more ways to get from A to Z than one. And I'm hopeful that Councilman Woolaver will consider suggestions such as that one you just made in getting from A to Z. And I also want to add, yes, the bond for the renovation of the town hall was indeed retired going on 4 years ago. And it did, and the retiring of that bond did not result in any reductions, but to be fair, it has allowed the town to proceed from year to year without increasing taxes.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I just, going forward to think of whether it's $500,000 or $1 million without a plan, I think it's just, I think it'll cost us far more money for any of those, and it's fine. But we need to have a utilization study and a far more in-depth inquiry to citizens in terms of what they want. Thank you.
And I agree with you. Unfortunately, Dan has warned us several times about the roof on that building. And if we don't do that, the building has the potential for not being worth doing anything with if we had a particularly strong winter.
Well, to me, that it would be negligence on the board's part, quite honestly. I think the board should pass a resolution. I think we have just a real need to do that or put a patch on it or something that would make sure that it can go through this winter that may be starting just this weekend. But we have raised so much funding through rentals, And it would be a sad note in our history book to do that when we have had over the last 2 years a strong message from our Rush Historical Society that they wanted to be considered partners with the town of Rush to have that building be the house where we would store our artifacts and open up the space in our town hall. No one goes up there, and it's a sad place. It'd probably be a good place to go at Halloween because it's just a dark little area up on that 3rd floor. We could open it up and have something that is good for our town, but at least we should fix the roof so we have that, because we've let all the roofs over at the Rush Riverside Refuge go. That's no way to go forward, and it would be money well spent as one taxpayer and resident here.
Dan, do you have a response that you'd like to give?
Not at this time.
Thank you. I agree with you, Catherine. The roofs are a big problem in the town of Rush. Not private residential roofs, but public building roofs. Victoria, does anyone else want to comment?
There is, I'm looking at my list, there's no one left.
Okay, then I was requested to have an attorney-client privilege session. Do we still want that, board?
Do we need one?
That's my question.
I thought John wrote back and said we didn't need one.
Amber, do we need an attorney-client privilege session?
I want to hear what Mr. Mancuso has to say first.
Is that the request that was made with regards to the issue about the town insurance that I responded to this morning?
Which I believe you said we didn't need one, correct?
That is
Yep.
correct.
That's what I thought, but I could be reading things wrong.
Yep. No, if that's the matter, then no, that matter's been addressed.
Okay, thank you very much. Then, having conducted all the business of the town of Rush on this day in October, I move that we adjourn this meeting. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I want to thank all of, go ahead. I want to thank all of you for coming. I want to thank all of those who participated and made the meeting interesting. And I hope to see everyone back again in the future. Thank you.
Be safe, everyone.
Thank you. Happy Halloween.
Pam, were you going to say something?
Have a
Good night.
Pam, did your new laptop break?
I don't have a new laptop. They're not going to be in till
Oh, they're
February.
not until February. That's right. I was going to say we got to get another new
Yeah,
one.
I don't
Right.
know what happened.
Well,
But my
thanks
my
for
one at
getting
home
back.
works.